Between 1905 and 1908, a St. Petersburg native and lapsed law student named Igor Fyodorovich Stravinsky, 1882 to 1971, studied orchestration with the venerable Russian nationalist composer Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. Much to Rimsky-Korsakov's distress, the music this young Stravinsky was increasingly drawn to was not that of his own Russian school, but rather the music of that French renegade, Claude Debussy. Stravinsky later wrote this, quote, "The following is illustrative of the attitude of the old master towards Debussy. At a concert where one of the latter's works was on the program, I asked Rimsky-Korsakov what he thought of it. He answered with these very words, 'Better not listen to him. One runs the risk of getting accustomed to him, and one might even end up by liking him,' unquote." Unfortunately, Rimsky-Korsakov's attempt to keep Stravinsky away from the music of Claude Debussy was like trying to keep ants away from your picnic food. Nice try, but you needn't have bothered. Because like any number of young forward-looking composers of his generation, Stravinsky was enthralled with Debussy's music. Debussy's compositional innovations offered an entirely new approach to the compositional language. Stravinsky absorbed and synthesized Debussy's innovations into a uniquely influential body of work of his own. The seminal composition of Stravinsky's early years was Le Sacre du Printemps, The Rite of Spring, of 1912. The impact of The Rite of Spring on the music of the 20th century was equal to that of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony on the music of the 19th century. Still, giving credit where credit was due, Stravinsky wrote in 1959, 47 years after the premiere of The Rite, that, quote, "Le Sacre owes more to Debussy than to anyone, the best music as well as the weakest," unquote. You are what you eat. Stravinsky's early life. Igor Stravinsky was born on June 17th or June 5th, according to the old-style Russian Julian calendar, in 1882 in Oranienbaum, a resort town located on the Gulf of Finland, about 35 miles west of St. Petersburg. Oranienbaum, which is today known as Lomonosov, was a trendy summer resort that catered to St. Petersburg's artistic and literary elites. For our information, both Tolstoy and Mussorgsky summered there. Stravinsky's family was likewise neck-deep in St. Petersburg's artistic life, as his father, Fyodor, was one of the great Russian operatic bass baritones of his time. Fyodor Stravinsky's career coincided with the golden age of Russian opera, a period that saw the premieres of the operas of Tchaikovsky and Rimsky-Korsakov, the last two operas of Mussorgsky, Alexander Borodin's Prince Igor, and a cartload of other operas by composers like Cesar Cui, Anton Rubinstein, and Sergei Taneyev. It was in St. Petersburg proper that Stravinsky grew up, with his parents, 3 brothers, and a gaggle of servants in an 8-room, second-story flat at number 66 Kryakov Canal. Stravinsky was a tiny, fragile child, and he never lost his self-consciousness about his diminutive size. He matured into a world-class hypochondriac as well, thanks in large part to his parents, who were paranoid about their children's health. Understandable, given the sorts of infections, smallpox, and cholera that were rampant in the cold and damp climate of St. Petersburg. Cold, damp, and rife with disease though it was, the St. Petersburg in which our Igor Stravinsky grew up was a remarkable place, an amazing mix of West and East, of rich and poor, of city people and country peasantry. Winter would bring a huge influx of peasants to the city, peasants who brought with them color, energy, and goods, as well as crime, homelessness, and monumental clutter. It was through this cluttered, stinking, overcrowded Baroque cityscape that Igor Stravinsky walked to school, played, and lived his life. The impressions it made on him were his mother's milk, and chief among those impressions was the remarkable confrontation and coexistence of East and West there on the streets of Peter, as the locals called the city. As a composer, Igor Stravinsky became what he ate, a composer with a split musical personality, a personality that mirrored the ethnic and cultural dichotomy of his hometown of St. Petersburg. He grew up in a westernized household, but a Russian household nevertheless. He grew up in the most westernized city in all of Russia, but a Russian city nevertheless. The East meets West cultural duality of St. Petersburg was to become the key to Stravinsky's artistic personality and the key to his compositional development. He began taking piano lessons when he was 9 or 10 years old and developed into a competent, though not a particularly gifted pianist. He could sight read quite well, and thus he became familiar with the opera scores his father had in the apartment. From the age of 10 or so on, he began to attend the opera and the symphony. In 1899, at the age of 17, Stravinsky got it into his head that when he grew up, he really wanted to be a composer. His father, Fyodor, who felt that he was in a position to recognize musical talent when he saw it, informed his son Igor that he would study law and by doing so qualify for a career in the Russian civil service. It was a paternal decision that did not sit well with young Igor, and there were words, angry words there at number 66 Kryokov Canal. Eventually, Stravinsky, father and son, struck a bargain. Provided Igor attend the university and study law, Fyodor would pay for private music theory and composition lessons, to which we say, thank God. It was a victory not just for Igor, but for human culture defined as widely as we like. In 1901, despite his spectacularly lackluster academic record, the now 19-year-old Stravinsky was accepted to the University of St. Petersburg as a student in the Faculty of Law. Among his classmates there was Vladimir, nicknamed Volodya, Rimsky-Korsakov, the son of who was, at the time, the most famous and beloved living Russian composer, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. With Volodya's encouragement, Stravinsky took a deep breath and arranged an audience with the grand old man of Russian music himself. Stravinsky tells us what happened.